Welcome to the new moon in Scorpio episode of Future Dreamers. I'm Catherine Leffler, and I'm so excited to talk to y'all. If you are watching on video, then you can see that I'm out on the land today. I'm not sitting in my old ranch house, which I love my old ranch house. She's almost 100. What are we going to talk about today? Well, if you have been following my social media lately, then you would have heard me talk multiple times about the fact that as a Scorpio, I have been feeling in my own self that it is time to do another transformation of who I am, to step into the next version of me. I've done this multiple times in my life, but this is the first time I'm going to do it with astrology deeply guiding me. Like, I'm going to get into the science of this, like at a crazy detailed level. And if you've, again, seen any of my Instagram posts, how I'm doing this, that's going to be what we talk about in this podcast. I'm going to walk you through everything you would need to do this for yourself. Because as a Scorpio with 4 planets in the 11th house, what I really feel like my intuition is telling me is that I should be modeling how I go about my own transformations so that anybody who feels called to follow along can absolutely do it. And so that's why I've been dropping all of the tools that I use to follow my astrology. And I dropped my new moon spell last night to my email list at 12:01 a.m. And if you get on my email list, you can still get it. And so this evening, I will be doing my own new moon spell, basically calling forth the next version of myself through the lens of my birth chart. And so, yeah, let's just really get into this episode and talk about why you would want to transform, how you can use astrology as the most mystical, data-driven tool to perform transformations, and why it is such a magnetic tool to use to guide truly the development of your evolution in your entire life. So we will start this way. We'll talk about what is the essence of a Scorpio, because we're all in Scorpio season right now. It's not just people who happen to be Scorpio suns or have other planets in Scorpio, but definitely go check your birth chart to see where in your birth chart Scorpio hits for you, which house is on the cusp of Scorpio for you, because everyone has the energy of every facet of the zodiac inside of them, and it's a matter of just knowing it and then like digging into the archetype and using it. So to get into the archetype of Scorpio is the only sign that has a sort of triune set of archetypes within it. At the lower level, the shadow level, we have the scorpion. Obviously, that archetype is like, it wants to be in the shadows. It might bite you. I get bit by like one scorpion a month living out here at the foothills of West Texas. And it wants to kind of be, it's comfortable with the darkness because that is where it feeds. But it as a Scorpio, not an actual physical scorpion, you can't stay in the shadows. You don't want to just live there exclusively. So what do you transmute and transform yourself into? The eagle. The eagle flies high in the sky. It has visibility into the bigger picture, but it still remembers the experience of its scorpion sort of essence. And so it's putting that lower level together with the higher level and getting that visionary state where it can truly see why things are the way they are, because it doesn't just have the high up view. It remembers being in the dark corners and really exploring what is at its depths. And then the third and highest level of the Scorpio archetype is the phoenix. It falls down from its heights of being an eagle all the way and, just crashes to the bottom of its depths again, with the surrendered willingness to know that going through that process of death and rebirth, it can't predict what's going to come out on the other side of a rebirth, but it knows it's going to be something brand new and beautiful. And so I talked about this in my episode on the entire wheel of the 12 zodiacs, but 12 signs of the zodiac. But the beauty and duty of a Scorpio is to be that scuba diver of its own depths and to survive the descent into its depths. See what's there, like gather your power, gather your staying power and your presence, so that you can actually see what exists in your own depths, and then take that back to the surface and use it to put your mind and your heart together to bring forth new levels of your own consciousness, as well as see that the entirety of humanity is a well of untapped consciousness that whenever in the journey of humanity and the human collective, we can all synthesize our own purposes and then string our genius together so that we can work actually as a collective. Humanity is a powerhouse of love, beauty, art, poetry, food, sensual power, sexuality, birth, death, viciousness. It's all part of just the tapestry of human emotions, which I doubt there is a species anywhere in the universe that has our particular flavor of power. But right now it's kind of untapped, especially if you check the news. So that leads me to my next point. The world needs you in your genius. It absolutely does. Gosh, it's been a rough ride as humanity. And I'm not just talking about the last 10 years, the last 42 years that I've been alive. Literally since we jumped out of the trees from the rainforests in Africa and started moving across the savannah and spreading out through the entire globe, it's been a little crazy. And at this particular point in time, when humanity has invented enough technology to blow ourselves the fuck up, how can we transmute all of the pain we've caused each other, all of the pain we've each experienced in our own lives, and really flip this bitch so that the earth can turn into the Edenic garden that it truly is destined to be? And how can we come together so that we all live the most beautiful destiny that we can imagine, which in my conception is to become the gardeners of the earth? It's to get into your genius. And how do you get into your genius? You self-actualize. You find out who you are at the deepest core level, and then you bring it forward. Now, how do you do that? You might be like, Catherine, that sounds like magic. Well, it is. So we're going to talk about magic on this episode and talk about how you can do your own magic. Doesn't matter if you've never done magic before. Doesn't matter if you don't even, well, okay, if you don't believe in it, it won't work for you. So, okay, I will put those people in a separate bucket. If you think magic is total bullshit, well, watch me do it. And if you do believe in it, then welcome to the Witch's Cauldron. I live at a place called Rancho Scorpio. I got this place by doing magic with astrology, and I've done much, much, much magic on this beautiful piece of land that I am so grateful to live on, steward, caretake, and dream into, and learn to speak with, learn to listen to. And so what I'm talking about in the context of astrology, this new moon in Scorpio spell that I'm doing for myself and modeling for anyone who's watching, is the blending of experimentation and magic. Because we live in a time of great peril, great trauma, but we also live in a time of great possibility. And if humans are anything, besides the lovers, queens, kings, magicians, villains, and warriors that we are, and everything in between, we are tool makers. You are a tool maker, and you are a utilizer of tools. And in my family, I grew up with a dad who's like crazy handy. He could like build anything, and I don't have the same skill set as he does, but I learned from him how important tools are, and how when you need to do a certain job, you need to have the right tool. And so I've used the gifts that I have developed in my own life to make Starlight, which to my mind, from what I've seen, is the most detail-oriented, powerful platform for your own magical evolution that I've ever used. And I got it through magic because it came to me through my intuition. It came to me through using plant magic, plant medicine that I grew myself, and then through my own practice of ritual in my own life, I got the download, or whatever you want to call it, my Neptune in Sagittarius mixed with my Uranus in Sagittarius, and I got this deep, clear message that I needed to use my tools as a software developer and a software designer and project manager and like business lady to make a magical astrological platform that isn't just to like read about what global transits are going on. You can like go to Moon Omens for all that. But what we really need in the world is humans to come forth in their genius by actualizing their deep individuality. And how do they do that? By getting on cosmic time, by understanding what cosmic cycles are playing out in your life right this minute, and then having a tool that interprets all of the archetypal relationships between all of those cosmic bodies, and then helps them also bridge together a deep understanding of their birth chart so that they can put all of that together and synthesize it into the hero story that they are meant to live in this life, and then follow their personal natal transit so they can actually do that. So that's what Starlight does in a nutshell, in a pecan shell. I planted a few pecan trees last year and they got eaten by grasshoppers. So grasshoppers are haters. That's a bit of a tangent. So let me now bring us around to astrology. What is astrology truly at the core? Astrology is the sacred geometry of the cosmos. Astrology is math. But how do you understand math? If you have a human brain, if you just look at 1 + 1 = 2, if no one had explained to you the story of what 1 + 1 = 2 means, and actually in kind of like mystical math, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it equals 3. It's a different, I'll go into that rabbit hole some other time. But you can't understand math very well unless you have story behind it. And so astrology is essentially mythopoetic math. We are taking the mathematical relationships of where cosmic bodies are in the sky right now, the sky clock, the oldest clock humanity has, the way we conceive of time, and then you understand that they have archetypal meaning behind each cosmic body, and then each geometric relationship between the different cosmic bodies have their own archetypal meanings as they relate to phases, as they relate to cycles. So astrology is the sacred geometry of the sky, but it is, as we know, the sky is always moving, and the sky is never in the same place ever. It returns to the different bodies will cycle through their orbits and meet, but our universe itself, our solar system, is like moving through the cosmos. We're not just like sitting in the same place. Like we're like hurtling through space. It's crazy. We're all on this rock together. Cheers. Who knows how many times we've been here before. And so I believe we're all on the earth right now because like all of our gifts are truly needed. And so now that we have the technology to get the deep data interpreted for us on a daily basis and truly understand the gift energy that each of us was dropped onto the planet with, which is availed to us through looking at the sacred mandala of our birth charts, we can start to get on sacred time. We can start to evolve towards our purpose with the full data-driven insights of astrology, which you would have had to like Queen or Cleopatra would have had to pay like a full-time astrologer to do this stuff, and they wouldn't have even had the data to do it back then. So from the comfort of your home anywhere in the world, you can log into Starlight for free and get something that like kings and queens, emperors, and magicians have never had before in the history of the earth. So that's pretty wild. Yikes, pinching myself. And so what do we do with this sacred geometry of the sky? What do we do with the mythopoetic story that astrology is telling us? We harness what's called intuitional math. Terence McKenna, what a gem, what a fucking treasure. Also, what a hottie, low key. I think he's my celebrity crush. My husband knows that. So, Terence, if you were here, I'd tell you were a 10. But he has a talk that he did where he goes deep into the topic of intuitional math. And I won't go like crazy deep into this right now, but essentially, how do you experiment? How does a scientist bring forth new discoveries? Well, first it's an idea. It's an intuition that maybe something might be true. And then they back up their experimentation with data, questions, theories, hypotheses. And then through experimenting one way or the other, they go through a methodology of figuring out, was my intuition correct or was my intuition not correct? And that is essentially what we all need to do as humans who want to learn how to use your intuition. Your intuition is such a powerful tool, but if you haven't harnessed it many times, if it's your first rodeo in the intuition game, then, it's kind of a dull knife. It's a bit of a butter knife situation, and you don't want to go around cutting steaks with the wrong implement. And so it's our responsibility, our opportunity, and our invitation to harness and sharpen our intuition throughout the course of our life. And astrology, because it supports the experimentation process and development of intuition, is essentially, because astrology is tied to math and the sacred geometry of the sky clock, it is how we practice intuitional math. I've been using Starlight every single day for the last year and a half to understand, are my personal transits leading me towards my goals and helping me understand different phases of my cycles, different parts of my psyche, so that I can bring forth the consciousness that they are asking me to step into. And the long story short of this year and a half experiment is absolutely fuck yes, they are. And so you can go get all that shit right now inside of starlight.com. So now we've kind of covered what is astrology. It's sacred geometry, it's a sky clock, it's mythopoetic math, it's how we practice, harness, and hone our intuition. Now let's go into the topic of the birth chart. And again, I'm explaining all of this to you because what I'm going to talk about in a second is how to work my new moon in Scorpio spell that I'm doing for myself. And I totally invite anybody who's ready to bring the next version of themselves forward to go take a look at the spell and work it in your own life. Do your own magic. So the way the spell really is designed is that we need to understand a few things. The birth chart is a sacred mandala, a code of the energy that we were all seeded with that is available for us to garden, just like a seed, just like planting an acorn and growing an oak tree. The thing about it is, though, is it's not a destiny. There's not like this causal relationship between your birth chart and how your life turns out. Like you could have a mouse and a queen have the same birth chart. You could have an aristocrat. I don't even I guess they still exist. I don't know any, but like in the old days, aristocrats and like chimney sweeps could have the same birth chart. But now, because we live in a world where the digital world gives us so much access to information, so much access to economic opportunity that didn't exist, the world is slowly but faster than ever before becoming democratized in terms of opportunity, at least in the West. And if you have the opportunity to take control of your own opportunity, gaining your own wealth so that you can help the rest of the world is a deeply what do you want to call it? I think it's something that everyone should think about it in terms of their purpose. And we'll get into where in your birth chart that becomes, gaining your own wealth, gaining your own independence and sovereignty is deeply in service to the collective. But back to the topic of the birth chart. Because the birth chart is this guide map to our soul's blueprint of the highest purpose that you specifically have coded in you through the time, place, and exact moment that you dropped onto the earth, given what was in the sky at the time, those energies are in you, but you have to coax them out. You have to grow them. You have to participate in their development, just like a gardener participates in the cultivation of their fields, their crops, their plants. And it's a deeply loving relationship to do that. And so what's in a birth chart? If you've seen one before, it might look like a bunch of hieroglyphs to you, but what those glyphs are is they represent the planets. They represent what sign of the zodiac the planets were in when you were born. Based on what time you were born, what sign was rising on the horizon, that codes your ascendant, your rising sign, and then that sets the stage for all of the houses in your birth chart, which are not only just a representation of different areas of your life, but they are also a map of your creative development as a human. It's literally the life cycle of your development of actualizing the creator being within you. And then we have aspects, which are the geometric relationships between planets. So what do we do with all of this? We get into it at the level of first understanding the archetypal function of the planets. And that is basically you take all of the planets and they have a corresponding relationship to different functions of your psyche. Let's just start with the sun. I won't go through all of them because I recorded a whole episode on all of this, and I hope this podcast is less than an hour, so I'm going to try. I have a few more things to talk about. So your sun, it's not just your ego, but it's the vitalizing force in you. It is what integrates all of the other facets of your psyche. Your moon, it's your intuitive factor, how the discourse between your internal world and your external world has a bridge to come out, how you emotionally synthesize the experiences that you are going through. Your Mars, that's how you take action, how you move forward in the world and actually do stuff. Your Venus is the receptive factor to your Mars. It's the value you place on beauty, how you want to feel comfortable in the aesthetics of your life related to beauty and love. Your Mercury is your communication, how your intellect, how you weave together into a communicative way the experiences that you are having in the external world and the internal world. And there's more planets, which you can listen to my episode on all of the planets and how they are a map to your psyche in another episode of Future Dreamers. Then you have the signs, the entire wheel of the zodiac, which I just recorded an episode on. It is a map of the entire life cycle of human consciousness. It's super fascinating, and we all have every energy of the zodiac within us, so I highly recommend checking out that episode. And the houses, like I mentioned, it's basically the way you understand how to develop yourself so that you can be the most creative, effectual being that you can in this lifetime. And the aspects show us the phases of where the cyclic relationship of planets in their orbits to another, and that helps us understand ally relationships between different planets. And there are no bad aspects if you know a lot about astrology. A square doesn't mean like shit's gonna blow up. It just means there's tension to help you build. A conjunction, that's the beginning of a new cycle. A sextile, that's the beginning. Like you see the dream starting to take shape and you're like, oh, amazing. The beginning of this new cycle is like starting to reveal itself to me. A square is when you're like, now I need to build it. Now I need to like go to the Home Depot of my dreams and actually like put the sticks together and like build the structure of what's actually going to be visible in full fruition when it gets to an opposition, which is the full moon phase. And then it winds back down around and we begin a new phase. And so all of the planets do that with each other. And you have aspects in your birth chart that show you what cyclic relationship the planets were in when you were born, and that helps code into you and reveal to yourself your patterns, which could be patterns that challenge you or patterns that are very supportive. And again, none of these are good or bad. They're all just maps towards lessons that you are meant to learn in this lifetime so that you can become the most full, unique, individualized version of you that you can. And so now that we've kind of talked about what's the birth chart, how can you get really specific information about who you are right now and then how you can become the next version? Well, once you've understood all of the relationships, you've understood your planets, you've understood the signs they're in, and then gotten into the houses and the aspects, take a look at your planets from the planets and signs from the perspective of shadow, gift, and superpower. I'm super excited to record a deeper episode on this topic, which I won't go into now, but spiral dynamics is a topic of the development and life cycles of human consciousness that is put forward by Ken Wilber. He has many books on it, but I highly recommend getting his basic book. I think it's just called Spiral Dynamics, but I'll have to check. Maybe I'll link that in this episode. So spiral dynamics is essentially a deeper, more stair-step understanding of the shadow, the gift, and the superpower of human consciousness. And so each of your planets in signs, once you synthesize the archetypes of the planet itself and then the kind of costume that the zodiac essentially puts onto the planet, then you can understand, for my Mars, am I showing up in the shadow? Am I maybe kind of at the gift level? Am I pointing towards the superpower? And so when you understand that is an opportunity for you from a data science perspective of how your psyche works, you can take a look at each of your facets of your psyche and figure out, how am I living that out right now? And does that serve me? Is that holding me back from purpose, dreams I want to get to? Maybe. And so what you can use archetypes to do is to help you climb to the gift. Archetypes are ladders. Archetypes are right brain software that help us deeply understand universal patterns of human behavior. And they help us understand our behavior and then modify it. And you can work with archetypes, which is another episode I'll do on Future Dreamers, specifically dedicated to how to work with archetypes and the absolute magic that you can do in your life. Because I'm currently working with a few archetypes. I have worked with archetypes before, and I'll work with them for the rest of my life because it's deeply, for me, it's a deeply ingrained part of my personal way that I do magic in the world. It's windy out here. Okay, so once we've understood our birth chart, our planets, we understand, like, at the base case, how our psyche is extremely personalized to ourselves and how we're showing up in it. What do we do with that? And this is all how the spell works. And you'll get these directions step by step if you go to my email list and get my spell. But what we do with it is we deeply feel into the purpose that is laid out for us in our birth chart. And for the people that I've read birth charts for, my clients, one of the things that they tell me often is, like, what I tell them about themselves through just interpreting their birth chart for them, they deeply feel that. I'm not like making shit up that's like a complete surprise to them. They're like, oh gosh, I feel that in myself. And they're either, some of the people I've read for, they're so on purpose. It's amazing to see them actually living out their birth chart and they didn't even know it. And so the opportunity for them is just like, let your birth chart like amp up your magnetism towards getting deeper into your purpose and making your purpose bigger, faster. It's so beautiful to see. But if you are confused as to what your purpose is and you're like, God, I want to be doing something more with my life, but I just like don't know. Your birth chart has that story in it for you. You know, once you see what's in your 10th house, your 11th house, there are like ways of just seeing deep magnets of purpose inside the sacred mandala of your birth chart. And I'll have more about how to like work with me to find that if that's something you really want to know at the end of the episode. But in terms of this spell, this transformational spell that we're doing in Scorpio season, the next thing you do after you understand your birth chart and you understand the shadows, gifts, and superpowers of what you've got going on in your own hyper-specific mix of you is you call forth and write in your own words your hero's story. So I'm doing my new moon spell tonight on the new moon in Scorpio to just call out to the universe and say, I am calling forth the newest version of myself based on a deep study of my birth chart. On the full moon in Taurus in 2 weeks, I'm going to be releasing my written version of my newest hero story, the hero story that my current level of consciousness is pulling forth. And my cat is coming over to say hello, so she might be joining us. And so, meow, Weems. What's up, girl? You're a cutie. So when you write your hero's story, what is that? You're claiming that you're a hero, and you are a hero. Every single human on this planet right now has the capacity to evoke the highest version of themselves, and that is heroic. And your ancestors were heroes because they survived so you could be here. So the goal of this is to really step into that ancestor version of you. That's been a commitment of mine for years. How do I become the ancestor version of myself? Not the egoic version of Catherine who just wants the cookies she wants now or wants to go on a trip to look cute on Instagram or whatever. I've done plenty of that shit in my life. I don't need to be doing that again. Just for the sake of doing that. What I need to be focusing on in an act of gratitude for being here on the planet right now is how do I devote my gifts and cultivate my gifts and become a lifelong learner so that I can become a lifelong contributor to the story of humanity. And that is what being a hero is. And so I am inviting all of you to claim that for yourselves, and I'm giving you the tools to make it feel real and be real. Yeah, it's pretty sexy shit. So how do you get there? If you understand, okay, Catherine, I read my birth chart. It's amazing. I really feel it in my bones. It like gave me the chills. Like, shit, I've cried reading my birth chart, being like, oh, like that is in me. But the scary thing is getting it, being it is on you. It's a dance with the universe, but it like really requires you to show up and get fucking real with yourself about your behaviors. Get fucking real with yourself about your patterns, your triggers. I've worked through a bunch of mine, but I'm still working on them. Like, absolutely. And it's like real. It's really real to like look at yourself and be like, I'm a human alive on planet Earth right now. And I am in control of what I can control, which is usually your inner world. You can't control the outer world. You just have to learn how to surf that shit. But how do you learn to be stable on your surfboard as best you can? Your personal natal transits, because the other thing we've been mentioning about astrology is that astrology is a system of cycles and patterns. Cycles, through living them, help us recognize patterns in the world, patterns in society, patterns in consciousness, patterns in our own behavior. And through that, we can learn through cultivating our intuition, remembering that what we're doing by following our astrology is sharpening our capacity to do intuitional math, to be a practitioner of intuitional math, is we learn how to surf cycles. And personal natal transits, that is the astrology for you that changes every single day. And that's why I send out daily personal natal transit emails for free to my email list, which nobody in the astrology world does, by the way, just me, for you, because this is my gift and I want to give so much of my work away. I'm going to start charging for it soon. But anyway, that part will always stay free. So personal natal transits, just like you have aspects in your birth chart, the aspects in your birth chart were like the transits that were going on when you were born. And so we have transits going on all the time. It's the geometric relationships between where planets are in the sky right now and other planets. And they're all in different orbital relationships to each other. And those are cycles that basically, if Uranus is conjunct, what did Uranus just conjunct lately? I think it just conjuncted Jupiter. I kind of forgot. I'm having a personal natal transit right now, which is Uranus in Taurus retrograde conjunct my Chiron in Taurus retrograde. So this is a new era I'm stepping into of healing my internal self-worth. That's one of the big reasons I'm stepping into a new version of myself through the spell is, people with Chiron and Taurus, they can have like deep self-worth issues, especially mine is in my 6th house. So it's around work. So I work really, really, really hard at the tools I make because internally I'm like, are they good enough? Did I do a good enough job? Is everything right? And so I'm learning through this process, Uranus kind of conjuncting, not kind of, it's definitely conjuncting my Chiron and Taurus. I'm stepping into a revolution of my self-worth and like healing that. And you'll see my personality evolve and change if you continue to follow my content. And by having the strength that I have at this point in my consciousness to model that vulnerability to you, what I'm showing you is that if you follow my content for a period of time, you'll see me heal in front of you. You'll see me prove that this is possible. And I'll tell you time and again that one of the reasons I have the character to, like the strength of character to continue doing this is that because I understand my birth chart and I understand where I'm going, my soul feels called to go somewhere, and my personal natal transits are continually urging me and showing me the way. Now, it doesn't do it for you, as I've said multiple times in this episode alone. You have to show up with your own effort. You have to continue to get into alignment, get back in if you fall out, and show up with the full force of your being, essentially. And so that's what I do my best to do every day, and why I want to give you these tools so that you can do the same thing. So to kind of wrap up this episode, what we've talked about the essence of Scorpio. We've talked about that the world needs us in our genius. We've talked about that you deserve the tools to self-actualize in this life. Like, do it in this life. We might have been scullery maids or emperors in another life, but one thing I know about this life is I'm going to become myself. I'm going to know who I am, and I'm going to know where I could go, and then I'm going to grow there. So That's why I'm using all the tools that I learned in like decades of being a software developer and project manager for boring ass government software. Now I'm bringing this to like magical tools. Ow, I just bit my tongue. Magical tools that we can use so that the masses of us can become heroes who want to dedicate their lives towards serving the collective of humanity. And it's not oh, do I serve myself or do I serve the collective? When you move towards your birth chart's purpose, that is not a zero-sum game. Everybody wins at that table, baby. We are now playing the infinite game. And I'm sure if you are in the spiritual circles, you probably heard that term before. But the infinite game means developing yourself never stops. You've been on this planet before. You're going to come back again. Maybe you're going to another one. I don't know. I think I've been on Earth a bunch of times, and I love it. Like it's really hard. It's super hard to be on Earth, but I just feel so tied to this planet. And, when I lay on the Earth, it's an ephemeral feeling that I don't have the words for. I'm sure Terence McKenna would have something hilarious, poignant, and absolutely super true to say about that. But what I can say about it is that I have a deep commitment to planet Earth, to Mother Earth, to this beautiful blue pearl that we live on. And my commitment extends into committing to you to use the gifts I've got to build tools that help us all. It's why I love reading people's birth charts. It's why I love reflecting back to them that I see the magic in them and that I want to help them either through one-on-one work or through just building tools that they can use on their own to like bringing that magic out into the real world so that they can feel it. When you feel yourself do magic, you'll never forget that. You'll never forget that it's possible. You'll never forget that you can do it again. You won't be able to predict it. That's the thing about spells. A spell is a dance between you and the universe. So as I call out to the universe this evening when I do my new moon spell in Scorpio, I don't know how it's going to end. And it's this unpredictable, spicy relationship between your intentions, how you're going to show up throughout the course of the spell, how much you understand about yourself, how in alignment you are. And then you got to let time work itself out. You have to allow the course of events to unfold. And then there's the magic X factor of the universe's pen in your story. But if you've got your alignment pretty tightened up, if you have beautiful intentions that you have gathered through your intuitional math, the sharp intuition that you have practiced through discernment, it's intention, it's intuition, not delusion. And then you show up day after day, read your personal natal transits, like step into the consciousness that you are meant to be unfolding. It's going to be amazing. There's just no other option. And so, yeah, this spell, again, it's starting today on the new moon in Scorpio. I'm doing my spell where I'm calling forth, help me bring the next version of myself as I can see it, as I can taste it and feel it in my birth chart, that wants to move towards my purpose and wants to let go of negative patterns, wants to let go of anything that's holding me back so I can get up to higher states of gift level consciousness for each of my planetary placements and each of my houses, looking at what aspects do I have that help me build here or there, what aspects are challenging patterns I want to let go of. I'm synthesizing all of that to understand what is the archetype of Catherine. Each of us are an archetype that the universe has never seen before. And that's why it dropped you here on your birthday. And how do you understand that archetype? You look at all the component archetypes in your birth chart and you put them together, and it's something brand new. It's something that's never been seen before. And it's delicious. It's delicious. It's magical. It's heroic. And it's here for you. So to wrap this up, the world needs us in our power, and you deserve to feel what that feels like. So I'm taking you with me on this spell. Get into the spell tonight or anytime in the next few days while the moon is still new in Scorpio, and call out to your next self. Envision what that bad bitch or that badass man, that divine masculine, that divine feminine, the heroes gamos within you. Who is that? Imagine them and invite them into your life, and they'll step forward if you do this spell. I guarantee you. Then write your hero's story as you start to understand your birth chart more and more. Like, write it down in your own words. I'm sending out a template to everyone on my email list that will help you write the story through understanding your birth chart. And then use your personal natal transits. The spell doesn't end in 2 weeks. This is a 6-month spell. This is a full new moon to full moon in Scorpio spell. So the spell will wrap up on the full moon in Scorpio, which is going to be May 12th, 2025. And what do you do in the meantime? Well, you live your life, obviously, but continue to understand your birth chart at deeper levels. Every time I go in and read my birth chart, I see something new. I feel something new about myself. So you're deepening your relationship with the understanding you have of your own psyche. And then use your personal natal transits. See what your big transits are. Those are the really gold ones. There's like, this is the new consciousness that you need to be stepping into as an individual. And then use the shorter term transits. The moon transits help you understand the emotions you're having day to day. Your Mars transits help you understand where should you be putting action towards building whatever it is you need to be building in your life. Venus helps you understand, like the aesthetic beauty. Maybe you're getting a little money, whatever it is. What kind of love is coming into your life, how you're cultivating beauty and love in the world. There's so many things to learn inside of your personal natal transits email that I send out free to everybody. And Starly has like an even deeper interpretation of all of those transits. And in Starly, you can journal on all of these, or just journal about whatever was going on for you. And then when you click submit on your journal, it gives you like a 12 paragraph like rundown of what happened. Like, it's basically astral journaling. What's going on in your life compared to what your transits are popping off. So, let's all get into our intuition. Let's all cultivate deep discernment. Let's all cultivate just an intention towards being the best version of ourselves, so that we can listen to Mother Earth and turn this ship around and make Earth the most beautiful place in the cosmos. It already has been, and it has the possibility to be that again. And we as humans can step into a collective purpose of our highest good. But the thing is we got to do it for ourselves first before we can all do it together. So I hope that you go get my spell. I hope you do the spell. I hope you follow my content so that you can continue to be gassed up by your cosmic hype witch, which I am in spades. And I'm going to lay it all out for you. I'm going to be releasing my hero's story on November 15th. And showing you what I'm working through personally, what I am calling myself into at a higher level, and owning that, because that's accountability for myself to make it happen. And it's going to show you how magic works, which we all deserve to be doing it. So anyway, thank you, if you listened to the end of this, for joining me for another episode of Future Dreamers. And I can't wait to see all the magic you can do. Toodles.